Grooming is the insidious act of earning a person's trust through manipulation, fully intending to exploit them. If I told you people were doing this through memes, you'd probably call me crazy. But I promise, by the end of this video, your mind will have been changed tenfold. Pinkpilling is a lesser known, more recent type of grooming that focuses on force-femming, typically by introducing certain ideas through seemingly innocuous sources such as memes or YouTube videos. It's a phrase born from terminally online discussion that began to hold water as it became more common. These days, you can find traces of it scattered across various viral memes, and this was no accident. Trans girls and pumpkins, skirts and thigh highs, and of course, Boykisser. In the hands of the wrong person, these can be weaponized into something horrible, and best believe they already have been. Today, I'll be telling you all about it. I'll also explain how it works, how to spot it, and cover a few communities at risk. Though for the sake of safety, I'll only cover known cases. Before we get started, quick disclaimer. This video isn't to spread anti-trans rhetoric. Seeing as I am literally part of the LGBTQ, generalizing them as a bunch of groomers would be really stupid. That said, this is meant to be informative and not some political commentary, so I'm leaving most of my opinions out of the discussion, and I'll probably sound like an enlightened centrist off Reddit. Wherever you, the viewer, fall on this funny compass, I don't really care right now. I just want you to learn something. All I ask is for you all to be normal, not kill each other in the comments, and definitely not to harass anyone afterwards. Hopefully this video will spread awareness, and, by the grace of God, invite a level-headed discussion. Alright, let's get into this mess. This chapter covers a bunch of semi-related things. Sorry if it seems all over the place, but I promise it will make sense in a few minutes. Let's start off with a question. Who here remembers e-girls in Prime 2018, when you couldn't scroll more than 5 posts on Instagram without seeing Belle Delphine's grippers on your screen? Funnily enough, this period of time was crucial, because it showed people just how influential one could get by simply being attractive, wearing specific outfits, and having a Redditor catering personality. Up until this day, this remains an unpatched method of raising your follow count by the 100,000s. How does this relate to the topic at hand? Well, as it turns out, if you take those same outfits and slap them on guys who look like girls, the appeal went nowhere. In fact, to some people, it was even more desirable. I know what you're thinking. Am I seriously implying e-girls created femboys? Definitely not, but what I am saying is e-girls helped popularize what's now widely known as the Amazon Basics fit, consisting of a skirt, thigh highs, fishnets, and oversized hoodie. If you were active online in the years surrounding 2020, you probably remember the absolutely insane number of memes about this very outfit circulating, especially memes thirsting over thigh highs. E-girls themselves did not give way to the big femboy craze around 2020. Instead, it was their audiences. Remember the term weeaboo? It's a derogatory phrase to make fun of someone LARPing as Japanese, since there was a lot of that going on in the 2010s. If you recall, weeb culture tends to have a lot of Gunnar-esque memes, such as the Ahegeo face hoodie. Here's a simple equation for you. E-girls targeted normies. Weebs are normies. Weebs love memes. E-girls use memes to appeal to normies. It's a feedback loop, and in a way the two cultures, if you can call them that, influenced each other. Just like that Ahegeo meme I mentioned a second ago, e-girls started doing the face, and it garnered like 10 billion likes a post. It was a huge hit and proved the cultures could work together. Another popular piece of weeb Gunnar culture were maid outfits, which e-girls picked up on. These outfits were popular for a few reasons, though two big ones come from anime and certain categories on certain websites. When you saw it on Instagram, it was usually somebody cosplaying an anime character. I'm sure people were completely normal about that and didn't make a metric fuck ton of memes about them. Obviously, these were intended as jokes, though the humor really did boil down to putting on the funny sex outfit in a lot of cases. And you just have to ask yourself, is it really a joke? It's undeniable that at some point it's been used to sway others into, well, putting on the maid dress. After all, it's just a joke. Wouldn't it be so funny if you followed through and actually did it? Seems harmless, till you think of the possible implications for 5 seconds. There's a sort of follow-up to a lot of these memes, where the text states, "I started this as a joke." I don't think it is one anymore. It's hard to call that a coincidence, because it isn't. I wonder if that applies to other jokes. Around this time, one of those happened to be at an all-time peak. Traps aren't gay. Throughout the later half of the 2010s, a huge number of people became obsessed with the idea of a trap. A guy who looks so convincingly like a girl, it's hard to believe they aren't one. Hence, a trap. Though the implication of the word trap turned the humor into ironic gay shitposting and coping. I'm sure you remember hearing stuff like, "It's not gay if we keep our socks on." At the end of the day, the humor boiled down to gay sex and guys that look like girls being hot. Wasn't really something people took seriously at the time, until they did. But we'll get to that in a moment. Something pushed through these e-girl or femboy memes was a fixation on a hyper-feminine body type. No body hair, flawlessly clear skin, hourglass figure, and of course, all of that being showcased through the Redditor catering Amazon Basics fit. Eventually, femboys were lumped into this, though when they were a lot more niche at the time. So instead of using real photos of femboys, a lot of them just used e-girls and captioned them with, "If you look like this and you're a guy, hit me up, please." It's a lot harder to write these off as jokes when the punchline is literally just thirsting over a photo of someone. More often than not, when referencing femboys, these thirsting memes would use artwork of anime characters like Astolfo instead of real photos. And Jesus Christ, did this get out of hand. 95% of the time you see one of these memes, it's either cropped NSFW or implying something sexual. This meme hasn't gone anywhere, you can still find it being posted all over the place. In the rare instance where it actually was a guy, well, to say photos of femboys wearing e-girl outfits generated attention would be like saying Minecraft sold a few copies. This audience of people would lose their fucking minds. And the numbers it generated, the influence, it started trickling down into age demographics that really shouldn't be looking at stuff like this. Characters like Astolfo becoming icons for the femboy community wouldn't be nearly as concerning if it wasn't for the biblical levels of NSFW in circulation and the fact most members of these communities are minors. It's time for an uncomfortable truth. The Amazon Basics fit as we know it was popularized heavily by models who used it to draw your attention to certain places. Use your imagination. The maid outfit was used for the exact same thing. On their own, these outfits are not inherently sexual, yet in the context that influenced this big wave of memes, they kind of were, and the audience definitely saw it that way. So seeing these same outfits later go triple platinum mainstream in minor-dominated places is one of many reasons why people find femboy communities so repulsive these days. It's not rocket science to look at this meme trend and realize it's a bunch of hormonal teenagers and weebs shitposting. Occasionally, weeb humor breaches containment and goes mainstream, such as traps aren't gay. Unfunniness aside, it wasn't really hurting anyone. Or was it? Behind the scenes, a storm was brewing. A small demographic was taking these memes a little too seriously. Worse is another demographic who realized that. Predators with a fetish for this type of thing realized they could harness these memes to pull strings, manipulating certain groups into becoming feminine or fully transitioning. If that sounds crazy, what if I told you this was already happening before any of these memes went mainstream? In early 2018, rumors of a 4chan user named Reiko began spreading online. A user allegedly using the R9K board to grow a femboy blackmailing ring. R9K was kinda notorious for having a ton of super lonely femboys and the like on it. Using the board, a Discord server was created to lure in members. From here, it's claimed Reiko forced these users to transition by manipulating them into sharing cross-dressing photos, then blackmailing them into taking HRT lest these photos be sent to their family, since his group of friends would dox the members upon joining. Him, his friends, and surrounding parties were obsessed with femboys, and the idea of force-femming in general. Certainly an extreme example, though I have to ask, does subtle manipulation with the same memes he used really sound so far-fetched by comparison? This also happened before the 2020 quarantine made everyone go fucking ballistic over femboys. All of these things, the outfits, influence, attention, niche humor, femboys, they overlapped into something terrible. Layers upon layers of sex jokes and mass social media attention created what is for all intents and purposes the big bang of pinkpilling. Everyone wasn't just learning about femboys. Other people were starting to fall into the ideology themselves. Or maybe they were already there and decided objectifying themselves for internet clout was the way to go. To give a blanket statement before we move on to the next chapter, being transgender or even a femboy is not a fetish in itself, it's just personal expression. However, it can be a fetish, either for the individual or an outside party. It's undeniable that a ton of people definitely do fetishize them, hence chasers. A big chunk of our future problem can be attributed to these guys. They're kind of the root of all evil in this case. Another contribution to these memes being circulated, even if it was small, were individuals who were low-key dysphoric, and used them as an outlet. The internet around this time was a lot more centered around shitposting. It was also a lot edgier. Fond memories we may have, being yourself online was fucking impossible. Pretty much everyone was drowned in irony, and if you went against the grain, you were going to get grilled. That's just how it was, and honestly I kinda miss it. It was funny. Anyways, in certain cases these memes were being posted ironically, though it reflected the poster's true self a bit more than they were letting on. This subset of posters would go on to create their own communities, the same specific communities that Pinkpillers would make their #1 target. When the COVID-19 quarantine came, the traps aren't gay crowd's humor began to evolve with other viral gooner-adjacent trends at the time. For example, the word bussy was definitely not in most people's vocabulary beforehand, but now you couldn't finish a conversation without hearing it. Throughout 2020, this humor would trickle into a mostly unaffiliated meme trend. And there's no real way around calling it what it is: the transgender stereotype memes of today. The Redditor Blahaj, Monster Energy, Ultra Kill, Bridget, Guilty Gear, Astolfo, Pumpkin, Estrogen memes we know and certainly do not love. It's an ever-growing bundle of stereotypes born from Redditors that continues to snowball, and rather unfortunately absorbs otherwise interesting people into what can only be described as the transgender version of a normie. The LGBTQ's version of a Funko Pop collector. Bad people? Not by any stretch of the word. It's more so a personality that lacks personality. Like a foundation without a house built on top. Although that's pretty much exactly what it is. Gender dysphoria and transitioning are pretty complicated things. It's easy to lose track of, say, your personal hobbies, fashion, interests, mannerisms. These memes were created for trans youth, typically by trans youth, to build a sense of belonging and community. A basic set of things to help embrace and affirm their identity until they could grow up and realize you don't need to reinvent your whole personality just to change genders. You can still like the same stuff, dude. I've heard countless stories about this very thing from trans people. Whenever I asked, the story was relatively consistent. They all adopted the Trans Normie Starter Pack because it was something to hold on to when they were trying to rediscover themselves. A study guide of sorts. They're all definitely still trans, but most of them cringe at the thought they used to identify with those memes. Either because it was try-hardy and fake, or because of the current reputation they have. Either way, these memes were meant to serve as the first stepping stone into transitioning for those who needed it. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and such is the case in this scenario. Because the internet is the internet, these images were later reposted by concerningly old hobgoblins perusing through communities of minors. Except they made one small change. They added a tinge of that traps aren't gay e-girl obsession humor to it. Actually, they added a lot. Naturally, these memes also started going viral, ensuring the well was poisoned forever. These days, if you go out of your way to find images like I quite regrettably needed to do for this video, you'll notice the vast majority mention being thick, horny, or some other sexual remark. It's become borderline socially acceptable to both post these and make them as a minor in recent years, no matter what type of community it is. These bastardized stereotype or starter pack memes, whatever you want to call them, are littered everywhere. For example, the furry community is bursting at the seams with stuff like this. A notorious case of these stereotypes being used could be found in Otoconiko Pharmaceuticals, a project by a Brazilian trans woman to produce bathtub HRT and sell it to those who couldn't get a prescription. It was controversial to begin with, since anyone against HRT or transgenderism would be against it no matter what, and she was associated with Keffels, which was bound to land her some flack regardless. That being said, if certain people want HRT and it gets banned locally, they're going to look for it elsewhere. You can't really fault people for that. It's their choice anyways. What you can fault someone for is plastering the box with memes and lolicon artwork that indulge in the sexual stereotypes surrounding trans people, knowing minors are going to buy it. At one point, "Keep out of reach of parents" was printed in big red text. This was a horrible look that's still weaponized against trans people to this day, and customers themselves would point out how harmful the marketing was. Also, the quality was super questionable, such as finding hair in the vials, and overall it seemed like it was being made in an unsterile chemical processing plant by an inexperienced chemist. The bulk of these memes weren't focused on sexual topics, however that changed when the ever-growing traps aren't gay gooner crowd began mixing in their own humor. This led to minor populated spaces being plastered with weird fetishistic imagery in the process. When that first domino fell, boy did the rest follow. But how does any of this groom someone into becoming feminine? Throughout this history lesson, I haven't really explained that, but now it's time to actually get into the title of the video. Where does pink pilling come into play? Grooming is a form of manipulation. In theory, anyone is susceptible. In most cases, it, and by extension pink pilling, thrive on vulnerable individuals rather than communities at large. That being said, the majority of pink pill victims are sourced through places like youth-focused LGBTQ subreddits and Discord servers, since the moderators seemingly don't care about child safety, or in extreme cases are trying to do it themselves en masse. When a predator reaches out, they tend to try and establish a connection as quickly as possible, then gradually shift the focus of the connection to boundary-pushing questions about sexual topics. The memes covered thus far, cornball and unfunny as they may be, serve as a shockingly effective way for predators to get their foot in the door. They're meant to be relatable to someone questioning their identity, although that's only phase 1 of the operation. Phase 2 is sending the sexualized versions, shifting the relationship from platonic to sexual. Through manipulation tactics like guilt tripping, love bombing, and isolation, the victim becomes complicit. After this point, there's no telling what sort of crimes happen. When it comes to victims who aren't questioning at all, the process remains mostly the same. Long-term manipulation through seemingly innocuous sources like memes and jokes. A really common way this is done is by the groomer pushing an ironically gay sense of humor onto the victim, and over time this might stop being a joke. I do need to state for the record that these memes are not magically going to groom someone. They're not like force-femme cognitohazards if you look at them, but they can be used to manipulate others into thinking and acting certain ways, reinforcing things like girls act this way and wear these outfits, when in reality it's hand-selected pieces of the perpetrator's fetish catalog, inserted into the memes the victim's been using to affirm themselves. Pink pilling is related to another type of grooming known as EPI. It stands for Early Porn Introduction, and means a predator introduces sexual media to a victim early on in their life. Usually it's a method to emotionally control them easier, though other times the predator just gets a kick out of shattering a child's innocence. Really sickening shit. EPI plays a role in what we've discussed so far, since these memes tend to outright use cropped NSFW or stick to the relatable SFW images, but twisted just enough to push the narrative into sexual territory, then going from there. The end goal of a pink pillar is to get the victim to view sexual actions as validating to their identity. This creates a very strong codependency bond, since the victim begins relying on their groomer for constant emotional gratification. In some cases, after numerous victims are cultivated, offshoot groups are formed, like certain examples we'll get to soon. So that's how it works and how to identify it. But how do you spot someone else being groomed this way? The most glaring signs are sudden out-of-character actions from the victim. For example, their display name, avatar, speech mannerisms, and sense of humor change into the pre-established stereotypes, or really anything you could call questionable. Some extra context, this is why you see these memes occasionally referred to as groomer humor or porn addict humor, since there's no punchline beyond it being about sex in some way. When it comes to your friends and family's safety, it's better to trust your gut instincts. If you notice someone suddenly change big parts of themselves all at once to something kind of unusual, you should probably ask about it. In my last couple of videos, I've had a few profoundly intelligent specimens tell me that speaking about this stuff will actually cause more harm than good, since I'm teaching people how to groom others and get away with it, which is absolutely insane to say when one, what? You could say that about any type of activism in history and it would still sound just as stupid. 2, people have known about this stuff forever now. Why do you think platforms like Discord and Roblox get so much scrutiny? God forbid, one more video about the topic gets made. That'll really tip the fucking scale. Sorry for derailing, I wanted to address the local wildlife before moving into the next topic, targeted communities. There's a couple well-known public hotbeds for pink pilling, some readily obvious, other places incredibly surprising. Each one also varies in size. Some are used daily by thousands, others only have a few hundred or less members. On affected platforms, and let's be real, it's the internet, every platform is affected, the activity always tends to congregate in specific areas. Earlier I mentioned pink pill-oriented groomers tend to go after LGBTQ youth communities, though realistically any platform that harbors a large child audience with social features such as Roblox will inevitably attract predators. So what about those readily obvious ones? Allow me to introduce you to Reddit's egg culture. Eggs are a term for people who are trans but haven't yet realized or accepted the identity, and cracking or hatching this egg means the person comes out of it. God forbid a trans person realizes they're trans and wants to talk about it. That's not the problem. It's the fact these communities are filled to the brim with overzealous adults borderline pushing minors into transitioning. And if you dare mention it, they just call you transphobic. Even when the people criticizing them have been trans for longer, but that's besides the point. If you actually go to the subreddit, it's mostly just people spamming low-effort memes of anime girls overlaid with text to be relatable. Yes, there are people here looking to give or receive advice, and that is the majority. However, they usually end up getting hijacked or even created by actual predators. If you think that's a wild statement, a registered sex offender was promoted to a moderator in 3 LGBTQ subreddits, r/MTF, r/LGBT, and r/EggIRL. What's even worse is that the other mods were deleting and banning members of these communities for bringing this situation to light. The head mod knew who this person was, but apparently the need for mods was so high that that's all they had to work with. Sure, Egg IRL has been a known hotspot for years now. Good intentions aside, this was inevitable due to its premise, age demographic, and horrendous moderation. Yet it's not even the tip of the iceberg when it comes to plagued communities. Femboy-focused subreddits suffer the same fate of being used as a potential victim catalog. Complaints of underage members receiving inappropriate messages from adults isn't uncommon at all. What makes these communities especially dangerous in my opinion is the users will frequently upload photos of themselves or overshare sensitive information. Discussion-oriented subreddits like r/feminine boys have a problem of underage users discussing NSFW topics, and moderation oftentimes being too slow to do anything about it. To emphasize the risk minors are at by using femboy subreddits, the most active and popular femboy subreddit by far is r/femboys, an NSFW sub clocking in at over 1.2 million monthly users. That is 6 times more popular than the second most active and supposedly safer work version, which only has 223,000 monthly users. And that one is filled to the brim with certainly risque pictures itself. It's worth mentioning that r/femboy cites itself as an 18+ sub in the rules, and redirects any minors to r/feminine boys, which is a strictly text-based community. So what am I getting at here? Do I think femboy communities are evil or something? No, if they're actually fucking moderated. Whether you agree or disagree with the idea of femboys, it's a topic of discussion that's not going anywhere anytime soon. The best outcome with that in mind would be to not have the most popular forums on a site as horrendous as Reddit. Let's just face the facts here. The femboy side of Reddit is predominantly overseen by inept lazy mods and actual confirmed predators. And a very large portion of the site quite openly fetishizes them. Do the users of these subs themselves deserve to be lambasted for that? No. However, they get away with talking about stuff they definitely shouldn't be, since there's, once again, awful moderation. To the website's credit, there have been numerous subreddits taken down that were full of minors posting inappropriate photos, and the replies being flooded with creeps begging to DM them. Rare Reddit W. Another pretty infamous sub is r/196. It's basically a shitposting community for progressives, and looking at the community, its issues become apparent quite fast. It's no secret the subreddit is predominantly used by minors. Even the rules of the sub mention this. Despite this well-known fact, the sub is so infamous because it is flooded with borderline or even straight up NSFW. These days, it still happens, but it used to be so much worse. Because the sub is progressive, naturally a lot of members are queer, and mixing the type of things that get posted here with the fact most members are teenagers, saying they're targeted by groomers is an understatement. I mean, there is literally a flair for posts called horny post, where people pushing 30 are posting photos of themselves, while yet again the rules clearly state the sub is mostly used by teens. In case I need to spell it out for you, the process of pinkpilling is significantly easier when the victim is already questioning in some way. And since Reddit's free labor task force does virtually nothing to prevent it, they tend to get targeted pretty heavily. This does not mean exclusively LGBTQ subreddits are at risk though. r/teenagers and the like are known to have predators lurking on them constantly. The unfortunate fact is if it has to do with children, there are going to be creeps present. And it's usually up to the common person, and God willing decent parental figures, to keep a close eye on everything. As dangerous as Reddit may be, it can't hold a candle up to Roblox. Described as the digital version of leaving your child alone in a shopping mall, Roblox is the poster child of poor child safety for all the wrong reasons. Horrendous moderation, the company literally trying to keep people from exposing bad actors, the social aspect, but also those offshoot groups I mentioned way earlier. Groomers and their victims don't exactly try to hide themselves here. In fact, they literally put easy to decipher coded messages in their bio, detailing exactly what they want and from who. These individuals then form groups on other social media, doing exactly what you think. You can find these players in the wild since they don't try to hide their tracks, although the really bad stuff happens on private servers. In my personal opinion, Roblox is the single most unsafe platform for minors right now. Predators are able to find their victims extremely easily. By the time the notoriously slow moderation bans the offender, they've already redirected the victim off platform, and literally nothing is stopping the banned offender from just making an alt account. These cases of grooming have led to the worst things imaginable, children being exploited in real life. Yet the company's priorities lie in getting people to stop talking about this, rather than dealing with the problem at hand. It's heartbreaking knowing the solutions to this are so easy, yet Roblox will likely never do anything about it, since all of them would result in a loss of profit in some way. Speaking of profits, a particularly infamous part of Roblox these days is the marketplace. Items range from harmless, to suggestive, to borderline NSFW. Browsing the catalog and searching keywords that shouldn't bring up any results on a kid's platform will yield pages upon pages of them. These include age regression, femboys, ABDL, Mero the Succubus, which is literally just from porn, and the white whale holy grail of groomer humor, Boykisser. Nothing can show the full process of bastardizing a meme and pink pilling better than the Boykisser. On June 22nd, 2022, Twitter artist Mousy Mice posts a gif of a talking cat with hypnotic red eyes, a simple gif to practice animation. There were a couple of these gifs, and the character was simply referred to as the silly cat. Fast forwarding to January 2023, it turned into a sort of I know what you are meme. Okay, nothing out of the ordinary there. Throughout 2023, copious amounts of this meme were being made and spammed across really any LGBTQ forum online. Alright, it's starting to get annoying and honestly kind of weird. Late 2023, Boykisser begins earning its modern day infamy. Twitter users such as Boykisser Kitty X used the persona to incessantly post about how much they love children and how racist they were, among other things. Most infamous was their Discord server, where grooming was literally happening in the general chat. Aside from this PR nightmare, you had tons of smaller incidents all over the internet. Boykisser memes were frequently posted by some rather unsavory or suspicious characters. You know, you couldn't quite place it, but something was up with them. Throughout 2024, the behavior went absolutely nowhere. Reddit communities dedicated to the weird side of Boykisser cropped up. A massive minor-dominated subreddit still exists to this day. Other subreddits like r/littleboykisser and I wish I was making that up thankfully got banned, although numerous individuals would take up the persona to act just as obnoxious and sickening as their predecessors. In the present day, nothing has changed. On March 10th, 2026, so like a month ago at the time of me uploading this, a Twitter user named BoykisserCutie creates a Discord server somehow even worse than the original. Members weren't even trying to hide the purpose of the server. Allegedly, it was so bad that CSEM was being posted in the general chat. Believe me when I say the poor reputation is well deserved. It shows how an innocent and totally unrelated meme can be corrupted, weaponized, and used for the most nefarious reasons imaginable, all while being disguised as a harmless joke. The rabbit hole goes super deep, and I may cover it in the future since there's a lot of the story that gets left out. And I am not lying when I say I could go on and on about these situations. These are not cherry-picked examples. Tragically, fans of Boykisser often fail to realize why people find it so repulsive, choosing to think it's purely for homophobic and anti-furry reasons, then plugging their ears whenever other talking points are brought up. I'm gonna come back to this in a second. Last thing I'll say on Boykisser for now is, one of the saddest parts of this story is what happened to Mousy Mice. Not only were they harassed incessantly and blamed for what happened, their reputation was forever tarnished by something they didn't even have a hand in. To this day, they're forced to keep their socials isolated to avoid catching strays. Across this video, nearly everything, no matter how scattered across the internet they may be, have one thing in common. Motherfucking Discord. Here's a quick question. When was the last time you saw a call-out thread exposing someone that didn't feature Discord screenshots? It's just a fact. Discord is the go-to app for all types of debauchery, especially grooming. Victims are either redirected to it after being found on other apps, or groomers simply find the victim on Discord in the first place. There are tons of server directories that allow people to advertise their groups publicly, and even tag them with things like Femboy or NSFW, so it's not exactly a challenge for predators to find them. Inside these servers are usually minors, sometimes lying about their ages, and adults who either don't realize or don't care. It's a huge problem that's well documented, and it likely won't go anywhere anytime soon. It just can't get fixed without overly intrusive or untrustworthy measures like digital IDs, or some scorched earth changes that definitely won't happen. So once again, it's up to users rather than the company itself. I'm not even going to get into the thousands of private servers out there. There are literal clans of victims and groomers alike that use Discord to archive illegal material and distribute it across the web, openly sharing content that carries decades of jail time. Easily some of the most disturbing groups of people on the internet, full stop. The rabbit hole goes really, really deep, and if you somehow figure out how to find it, I highly advise you to stay as far away from it as possible. Okay, I've been yammering on for a little while now, so let's wrap this up with some of my personal thoughts. Something that really bothers me about this issue is how hard it is to bring up without some moron instantly shutting you down by calling you a bigot, even if you're literally LGBTQ yourself. Or alternatively, they go on a schizophrenic hate speech rant about trans people. It's inevitable that any discussion about this will turn into a massive incoherent argument, jam-packed with every logical fallacy under the sun. The most frustrating part is this problem literally transcends politics. It happens all over the political compass. The amount of Black Sun Boykisser edits I saw when editing this video, my god. So many people are so politic-brained that instead of trying to fix the problem sitting right in front of them, they instead weaponize it against the other side to own the libs or own the conservatives, when it's an issue in general. Obviously I have my own opinions, but I tried leaving them out since, well, genuinely who gives a fuck? It's annoying when supposedly informative videos are just opinionated rants for someone's personal beliefs, and instead of making any points, it's just throwing jabs at people they don't like. So hopefully this video didn't do that, and if it did, please yell at me in the comments. I also hope this video was informative. This is something I wish people would talk about more, although for the aforementioned reasons, I can't exactly blame others for not wanting to. I've been vPlasma, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.